We're just about there. And we're ready. All right. Okay. I think we're here. All right. They said we're all good. All
All right, all
right.
right.
Right. All right. So let me get this straight on my phone so I can communicate with them. See, it's just so many steps with this Zoom. I mean, it's a wonderful tool, but it can get really, confusing with all these extra steps.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
like, oh, yeah. Okay. They say we can hear you and we can see you. Guess what, guys? I can hear you and I can see you too. So, all right, greetings to everybody who has joined us on Facebook Live. What I do need you all to do, we need to get our numbers up just a little bit so that we can go ahead and get into part two. I'm so excited about part two today. So, before I introduce our special guest, I'm going to ask you all to share and make sure we get all of our people on this live so we can get this information out. I know people like to jump on after a few minutes, but we want them to get all that we're going to talk about today. I'm excited about our topic. We had a wonderful discussion on Monday. So I look forward to today, part two, as we continue to talk about conquering crisis. And so we're all in a current crisis right now. We're going to talk about anxiety and the individual piece. We're going to talk about the person. On Monday, we talked about families and some things that families were dealing with, family violence. And we brought out some points that people probably didn't even consider. So tonight we want to talk about some individual things. So if you know of anybody who is struggling a little bit during this pandemic, because mostly that's what we're talking about. We have some other things that are going on as well. But if you know anybody that's struggling with this in any way, we're going to get down in detail. We're going to talk about some very specific things that people have been dealing with. And I know that for some, it is easier to just pretend like it's just life. I'm just dealing with life every day. But after a while, it gets to you. And if you
Hmm.
don't deal with it, it can really do some damage. So our numbers are going up. Good afternoon, good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. I see some doctors on here. Dr. Juanita's on here, and Dr. Donette Banks. Oh, girl, we got the doctors in the house tonight. Oh my goodness. So we have some really great leaders on here. Hello to everybody who's joining. Please take time and share. Tag somebody. You can put their name in the comment section and it goes directly to them, not just to their page. So tag somebody and say, hey, get on here. Let's have a good conversation. We aren't preaching tonight. I know most of you who are joining me, you're used to me either teaching a segment or preaching a segment. But this is the other component of who I am. If you don't know, I have a master's degree that deals with the social sciences. So I'm very much into mental health. I'm very much into people who are whole and healthy in their minds and their spirits and their bodies. So this is the component that I've been wanting to share, and I felt like this was the perfect time to do it. So I see that we're doing much better. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started because I don't want to keep her on long. She has a little baby. So I don't want to keep her up too late because you just never know with those babies. I don't have any babies anymore. So tonight, thank you for joining us again. This is Spirit Led Life, and this segment is about conquering crisis. It's mental health conversations with me. I am Doc Di, and I have a special guest joining me tonight. Her name is Stacy Hernandez, and if you saw the postcard, it does say MFT, Marriage Family Therapist. But she is just finished her degree and has not the exam yet. So I just wanted to make sure we kept our integrity there. So she's considered a marriage and family therapist intern. So the only thing she hasn't done is taken that test yet, but we're going to pray that God's going to bless her. She's going to come on through. So she has all the education and the experience. Currently, that's what she's been doing. So she has enough resources and experience in this area. So I know she's going to give us some really good comments and some really good thoughts and theories today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Is there anything you want to say before we jump into this?
No, just ready to dive in. Just ready to have a good
time. Big old cheesy grin. Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight, I sent you some information, but we're going to talk about anxiety. Okay, I want to talk about anxiety, fear, and depression because I'm no longer operating as a counselor, but I did it for about 20 years, for those of you who don't know. But I'm still very passionate about it. It's very important to me. We use it in ministry, but I realized that we're in something that's a little bit more detailed now. We're in a mode where everybody's kind of in the same boat. See, it's one thing when you're your own personal issues, but when you have something such as a pandemic, it is across the board. So
Absolutely.
It's a little bit more difficult, and we'll talk about that, to diagnose certain things when everybody's kind of feeling the pinch. So we'll start with a little bit of data, jump right into this and have conversation. Guests, those of you that are watching, please feel free to send us some questions. She is available for your questions. My team will vet it. Get those questions to me. I'll share them with our guests and she can answer them while she's on live right now. Information where you can contact her will also be in the comment section. I believe they will pin it so that you'll know where to contact her should you want to book her for services or anything. She does online counseling, she does marriage counseling, all of the above. So if you feel the need, please give her a shout out, a call, and she'll be able to help you. Okay, so let's get started here. So Stacy, this is what I want to talk about first, is that there's been major disruption in routines and people are concerned about contracting this disease. We've been in this for what, about like 4 months now?
Yes, 4 months, yes.
Yeah, like 4 months. So here it is. This is where I started. The truth is, where we are right now is unscripted, it is unproven, and it is uncertain. So that means we don't have any answers for when this thing is going to end. We don't have any answers what we need to do next, how we're going to come out of this, how it's going to affect you, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. When you don't know, when you have a lot of responsibilities, it causes a lot of anxiety and stress. And this is where I see people are today. So it creates anxiety, fear, and depression. So these numbers kind of got to me, and we'll get more into the numbers. But the first thing I want to say is, according to research, I did some research, 3 out of 5 Americans are deathly afraid that they're going to get this virus. I mean, severely, not just nervous. 3 out of 5. Those are some very strong numbers, don't you think? 3 out of 5 people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's more than half.
Absolutely.
So from there, you develop fear. So that's where we're going to go. So 3 out of 5 who says, I'm really, really severely afraid that I'm going to get this, then this fear comes in. Now, this is what I need to ask the therapist. Fear is a normal adaptive response to a perceived threat, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. Fear is normal. So tonight, I want to get to the point where we can dissect and identify when it's not normal. We're going to get into that a little bit later so that people will know, okay, this is normal, this is not, so that they will know if they need to seek help, treatment, therapy, or whatever it is, to make sure that they get the help that they need.
Absolutely.
So this is what I was thinking. When I was in school and we talked about fear, we knew that fear was, it would bring about an instinct that is either fight or flight. Remember that? It's kind of old fashioned, but fight or flight. So, but the thing about it, it's temporary. Fight or flight is temporary. We've been in this for 4 months. So you can't stay in that defense mode, because that's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You can't stay in that defense mode. So what do you say to people who are fearful for 4 months, who are operating in that temporary state of fight or flight?
Yeah.
Because it transitions into something greater. What do you think about that?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's totally abnormal where we are, right? In this place where we are with the coronavirus, nobody's ever seen anything like this before. Nobody's ever experienced anything like this before. And so really, our body and our emotions and all of those warning systems, those internal warning systems are just going haywire. Like, what in the world? I don't know if I should run, if I should fight. And then there's a third one, freeze, right? So that's what happens, when you think about a deer in headlights,
Right.
they're frozen. And so, when you get to this place, and sometimes that's a lot of what a lot of people are dealing with, right? They're just kind of hunkered down in their homes. They don't want to go anywhere. I just want to keep to myself because I don't know if you have it or this person has it, and they just really kind of get into themselves, and their thoughts really kind of can run away. Their thoughts can run away with them. And if they're constantly being inundated by the news, which can certainly propel that, right? So if you're already at a place where, I'm concerned and I want to be on the lookout, and then you're on the 24-hour news cycle, right? And you're always, checking. And it's one thing to be informed, but it's something else totally when you're always inundated by it. And so you have to figure out a way to break out of that. Like, that's not healthy to constantly be inundated, because in a lot of ways it can be very traumatic to just constantly hear the bad news over and over. And so I would say, if you're in that place of like, you don't know what to do, right? If you want to run or you want to fight, and that like this is not good for you, one of the things that I think that you could do is first recognize. I think that's hard, even recognizing, acknowledge, like, this doesn't feel like me, or we kind of all have ourselves, but if it doesn't feel like me, then be able to call that out and recognize that, I think, before we can even start to try to deal with that.
Wow. Okay, fight, flight, and freeze. See, they added freeze. All right. So, as listening to you, I know we shouldn't watch the news. For one, it makes us overstimulated too.
Yes.
But it's everywhere. It's on social media. I mean, it's coming from every angle. Either your family, your friends, or television, or whatever it is that you're watching, it's coming. So then it causes you to shift from fear, and we're going to get into anxiety a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at some data, and according to recent data from Healthline, which is YouGov, I don't know if you know, the government has a COVID tracker, but the government does. It has a COVID tracker.
I believe it.
So, yeah, I know, right?
I believe
so the COVID tracker says that, and I found this interesting, women working have increased their anxiety levels 52% since February.
Wow.
Versus 29% of their male counterparts.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So later, I want to talk about why the anxiety level is so much higher in women than it is in men. So we're going to get to that. But I thought that was very interesting.
It is.
That they have a tracker. So it tells you about the mental health state. Also, a mental health index also gives you information about COVID. There's a term that I found, it's called shifting energy use. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it talked about the issue with anxiety and COVID is that we're all used to operating in a certain amount of energy, right? So we're used to going to work, we're used to going to sports or dinner or whatever it is we're doing. That all of that energy now has shifted, and all of us are kind of in a place of non-movement. So when the energy use shifts, we don't know what to do. Our bodies don't know how to process that because we're so conditioned to routine. So when that routine is messed up, they said this is what causes quite a bit of anxiety or the numbers to go up because that energy use kind of just lies dormant. Wow. So I thought that was I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
So question one, in your practice, have you experienced, I want to know, because I know you do this every day.
I
Have you
do.
experienced increase in anxiety as it pertains to
Mhm.
COVID-19 or this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. My goodness. I have several couples who are dealing with this. And, even as you say it, and I kind of think about it, one couple like immediately pops in my head because this was such a huge issue for them. And so just to kind of give you like kind of a quick sketch, couple, early mid 30s. They have a 18-month-old daughter. Um, they both work full time, but since COVID happened, the husband has now been working from home. Now, prior to this, they had come in to see me about connection issues and about issues of him feeling like a father, but that was like inadequate, right? So like he had like, I'm not going to be a good enough dad, and I worry that I'm going to mess my daughter up like my dad messed me up, and I don't know how to connect with my daughter. And so he had all of these worries and anxieties, right, when he came in to see me, and we have been working through that and giving him different tools and techniques that he could use to like create a bond with his daughter. COVID hit.
Wow.
Okay. So COVID hit, and the next thing I know, they come in for their session. They came in at first, like in face to face, and then we started doing online sessions. And he just was so just like haggard, and he was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm working from home. My wife works 10 hours a day. I'm home with the baby, this baby that he's just starting to try to build a bond with, that he doesn't really know what he's doing and doesn't feel very confident in what he's doing. He's home 10 hours a day with this baby. He's trying to work. He still has meetings he has to go to. She's 18 months old. She's at this time 18 months old, 16 months old. So, trying to like manage like her little personality, her temper tantrums in this environment with this screaming child. I don't really know what I'm doing. And he just has like a flood, right? So this started to affect their marriage, because basically what started to happen was she would come home and he would just literally almost throw the child, like, I can't, you have to get her, and he would be gone. Yeah. And he would come back, he gone 2-3 hours. And so it just started to like really take a toll. And so he said, I really hope I get back into the office. So this is a person who didn't like working from home. He wanted a very strict boundary between work and home, but now they're enmeshed. He's struggling really bad. In our last session, he said to me, because originally upper management was like, okay, well, we'll see like 1st of June, we'll probably be back in the office. 1st of June is come and gone. And he's still at home. And I saw him in our last session, and he looks like he is just so worn down. And his wife says to me, because even he couldn't even come in for the full session, he's kind of popping in and out because he still has meetings going on. And so when he left, she's like, I'm worried. I'm just worried about him. And so we talked about like, what can you do to try to take some of the stress off? Can we put the child in daycare for a couple of days a week? Like, is there a way we can shift the schedules a little bit? Because he was really struggling. And so it put a strain on their ability to connect. It put a strain on, on him. And then I'm not going to say all of the work we did of trying to like build that bond with this child, got set back. But I think had we not started that work before COVID happened, this story would really not be going very well, I think. And so,
yeah, and that's kind of what we talked about Monday, situations like that, and it can easily turn abusive. And not that you
Absolutely.
ever intend for that to happen, but when someone who feels overwhelmed, that definitely is a recipe
oh my
for
gosh. It is a
Wow.
perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. Secondly, I have another couple, just as a follow-up. They are in their late 40s, early 50s. They kind of got started with the children on the kind of the backside of their life. And so they've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And so the 5-year-old is being homeschooled. And so mom is working upstairs 8 hours or 8, 10 hours a day. Dad is doing the homeschool piece. And he's like very rough around the edges. I mean, he's been a cop for like 30 years. He retired. And so the idea of, trying to kind of go from this, profession to being a teacher, without, any training, is kind of thrown into it and like, okay, this is the assignment, make sure they do it. And all of this, it was just getting really, really a lot for them. And they found themselves bickering more. They found themselves more stressed, having short tempers with each other, having short tempers with the kids. And then I said, okay, well, guys, tell me what you're doing. They had stopped therapy for a while, which was even worse, because they had nobody to watch the kids and they didn't have a support system. And so I said, when they came back in, because, she was just like, I have got to figure out a way to come back into therapy because I need somebody else to talk to about this. And so when they finally came back in, I said, guys, how are you guys managing all of this stuff? And you know what they said? They said, we just started drinking. We just started drinking.
Wow.
We drank all through the day. We drank at night.
With the baby there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so, I'm saying, guys, this is not healthy. And, they sat there and they were just like, we know, this is not good. We don't want to, do this. We don't want to be like this, but we don't know what else to do. And so I said, okay, look, we need to, we worked out a plan. Okay, we need to have a plan. And we started to discuss that. But, the stresses of what COVID-19 has done, the impact that it's made. And look, a lot of these people already had issues and it just compounded it.
We're going to get into one of the things that we definitely are going to discuss is some of the people who already have pre-existing issues.
Yeah.
So definitely going to get that. So can you hear me okay? Because I hear a little bit of an echo now all of a sudden.
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, maybe it's on this end. I don't know. Not sure what that is. Okay, so let's get into some of the symptoms of anxiety, because I want to talk a little bit more about the individual things that people are dealing with that might not be able to identify. Because sometimes they think it's normal. It's easy to adjust, and just kind of overlook stuff. So some of the things we want to talk about, and we can just talk briefly about each one, is sleep disturbances. I hear that a lot. People who cannot sleep, even my own sleep pattern is off. So I think that is something
absolutely
very prevalent, and people have adjusted to taking sleep aids.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night, but I hear from other people as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So heart palpitations is one thing.
Absolutely.
And to those that are watching, I want you guys to listen to some of these things we're talking about and really evaluate yourself where you are.
Please.
Yeah. So irritability is 3.
Oh my gosh. Short
Can
tempers.
you talk a little bit to that?
Oh my gosh. Short tempers, short fuse. Every little thing gets on your nerves. Here's the difference. Things that wouldn't normally bother you feel like nails on a chalkboard. Things that you would normally overlook, things that you would normally say, oh, that's whatever. I could walk away from that. I could, let that roll off my back. Now you're ready, fight or flight. You're ready to fight. Okay.
Yeah. People are angry.
Yeah.
Even driving. People are yelling, they're yelling at each other and
oh my goodness,
honking the horn and very impatient because anger is definitely a part of it.
Oh, for sure.
So it is just, these are ways to identify, and we're going to get a little bit more in detail so you'll know when is it not normal, when is it too much. We're not talking
Yes.
about a regular I'm
No,
upset and anger. This
no.
is something that is ongoing. How about
Yeah.
chronic worry?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
the idea of just, always, on edge, right? Always waiting for the shoe to drop, so to speak. Always waiting for like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Just, kind of just never being settled, right?
Yeah.
Never feeling like a place like, okay, I'm good. I'm content.
Yeah.
Always just extra nervous, a little bit
On
extra.
edge.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, always on edge. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things I did read about people who have generalized anxiety anyway. That's a
Yes.
diagnosis, that they're already
Yes.
always on the edge, even with
Already.
things that are illogical. It's just
Already.
the way they think, their minds are always there. So a couple
Absolutely.
more things we want to cover on symptoms of anxiety. We can talk about being anxious, tense muscles,
Oh boy.
soreness, exhaustion. Let's talk about
Yes.
exhaustion. How many people on this line, how many of you guys talk back to us that you go to bed tired and wake up tired?
Absolutely. My goodness. That
It's
is
like
huge.
you got sleep, but you didn't get rest.
There it is. That's it, 100%. That's it. And when you go to sleep, in a place of just worry and nerves, it takes your mind a while to even like wind down. You'll find yourself taking longer and longer being awake before you like actually drift off to sleep. And then when you wake up, it feels like I just closed my eyes.
Yeah.
You don't feel rejuvenated. You don't feel like you've been restored. You don't feel like, there's like a newness or anything. You're just like, it took me so long to go to sleep, and then now the alarm is going off.
Yeah.
And I'm headed into another day.
Yeah. There are two things I highlighted that I want to talk about that I found that were key symptoms of anxiety. And one of them is hypervigilant.
Mm-hmm.
that blew me away. Hypervigilant and emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for the audience that's watching, hypervigilant is I think she mentioned a little bit earlier, but it's kind of like being paranoid or always on the edge.
Oh
And
yes.
it's just kind of over the top people. I mean, come on, you guys got to know what I'm talking about. You always sense that something is going to go wrong.
Yes.
For something to go wrong. That's what hypervigilance is.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally dysregulated is when your emotions are all over from one extreme
over
to the next, right?
Unpredictable.
Don't you agree?
Yes, very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very unpredictable. You don't know. I know people like to call people like that bipolar. They like to say that. That's not exactly bipolar.
Right,
but
exactly.
It is an inability to manage your emotions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an inability to manage your emotions.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Those are all symptoms of anxiety. And y'all, we're not talking about just basic things, I got stuff on my mind. We're talking about being in this constant state of worry and concern for 4 months. And we don't even know when this is going to end. So it doesn't look like it's going to end right tomorrow. So it's going to go probably 5 months and 6 months. And being in that state. So today we want to identify what this looks like when your anxiety is severe or you really need to seek out some help and some things that you can do. We want to help you be able to pay attention and say, hey, I've been feeling like that this is not exactly normal. I don't feel the best in my body, especially you start having heart palpitations or headaches or stomach aches, all of these things that are all a part of anxiety. We want you to pay attention because you could really do some damage to your body without it. So let's go a little bit. Can we go a little bit deeper? So Stacy, I want to ask you this. What are some steps that you recommend, if you could give us 2 steps that you recommend for decreasing anxiety?
Okay, actually. And one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about is something that you can do to kind of decrease your anxiety. I wanted to just do kind of a little hop back, if I could, to emotional dysregulation we talked about just a second ago. One of the other things with that, I want your audience to be aware of when you have an unexpected emotional response to a situation that you would normally have a different response to. So like if, a situation happened and you would normally be, happy about it or wouldn't bother you, it just sends you from like 0 to 100, right? It just totally, and then either later you step back or somebody, pulls you aside and say, that feels like a little over the top. That's kind of a clue. And so that's another piece. I just want them to be aware that also, it can be an unexpected response to a particular situation. So something we can do to navigate trying to decrease anxiety, right? So a couple of the things, I was thinking about this and I was like, what are some practical things I tell people to do? The first thing I tell people to do is thought track. So many times we have anxious thoughts that we simply let pass without calling them out or dealing with the thought. So the first thing I would say is to recognize the thought, right? So we may be in a state of anxiety, but well, wait a minute, there's gotta be something that's driving that. There's gotta be some thoughts that are producing this emotion. And so when we can get a handle on wait a minute, let's bring this in and let's kind of hone in on what's one particular thought, right? And when we get that thought, let's kind of take it through this test, right? So we say, is this thought based in reality or fear? Is this thought based in reality or fear? If it is based on a lived experience, then what are the similarities or the differences between now and then? Right. So there's something, sometimes people will just say oh, well, it's all the same. Well, this happened to me before. Okay, well, wait a minute. Let's slow down and let's really pull that apart. Because when you start to really examine it and pull it apart, you'll start to see that it's really not the same. Right. And so, if that is a lived experience and that was based in reality, let's start to kind of dissect that and pull that apart, right? What are the similarities between now and then, that experience and what's going on right now? Finally, if it is based in fear, what is driving the fear? What is it? Is it something that happened to you? Is it something that you think will happen? Is it something that could happen? And really kind of getting down up under that, right? And so that's one of the things I say, catch that thought, right? Don't let it slide by. Catch that thought, say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? And go through that process of breaking it down. The next
thought track.
Tracking that thought.
Thought tracking.
Right. Thought tracking. The next thing I would say is I would like to propose positive affirmations, right? When we have a negative thought, right? And we'll let it pass. But the problem is when you think you've let it pass, it's actually sitting in your brain and it's taking up cognitive and emotional space, right? It's taking up what we call very expensive real estate up here. So it's very expensive real estate. And so I typically tell people, speak opposite of whatever that anxiety is telling you, right? What are some counters to these thoughts? Some people, is it a verse? Verses, there are several verses I can think of that are counter to some of these fears. Music is very powerful. It is a very powerful medium. What are some songs that speak opposite to these thoughts, right? I personally listen to many different types of music. Specifically, I like different Christian artists, and there's different songs that I listen to. I listen to, Natalie Grant, she's got a song, King of the World. Right now, my current, if I can say my current jam is Anthony Brown, Group Therapy. He's got a song this week. That's my jam.
Do people still say jam?
I say jam. I say jam. So he's got a song this week, right? I love that song. It's just such an inspirational, like, pump up song to, like, get, you know what? Because sometimes we can get in a place and, like, oh my gosh, everything is bad. Oh my gosh, nothing goes right. You know what? That song totally speaks opposite to that, right? Yeah. And then I also like Casting Crowns, and they have a great song called The Voice of Truth, which is very powerful. And one of the lines says, the voice of truth, it's the voice of truth. It tells me a different story. The voice of truth pushes fear away. I love that song. And so, you have to find what works for you. I love those different songs. Music can, because it is so powerful, it can immediately shift us to a different place. And so, I really, I recommend that. What are those verses, in the Bible? What are those positive affirmations? And you know what? It's going to take more than one time to just like, okay, I'm just going to read it one time and then that's it. No, because these thoughts are constant and they come all the time. So everywhere you are, in your kitchen, in your car, in the bathroom, if you have sticky notes, write it on the sticky note, every place you can see it, because those thoughts always come and you've got to have a way to counter that thought when it comes. Don't allow it to sit up here in your brain and take up that valuable real estate that you've got up there.
Absolutely. Thank you for those two examples. I definitely do both of those. I think they are important, but I love the term. I didn't know it was called thought tracking. So I see that they did write that down in the comments, the listeners. And then music or whatever positive affirmation you use for yourself, Absolutely. All types of music. If you're not a Christian, you don't have to be a Christian to apply what she's saying. It's any kind of music. I mean, I have all kind of playlists because sometimes I'm blasting Unstoppable and then sometimes I'm blasting Roar, on where I am and where I need to be lifted.
Absolutely.
So I want to encourage you guys to do that. So a little bit further into our lesson tonight, there are 5 areas I've found. I wanted to determine if certain people were greater at risk for anxiety, fear, and depression. And so I found 5 areas. So I do want us to take a few minutes to discuss that. Our time is going so fast. So the first thing on the list was women. And I mentioned those numbers earlier. So I do want to take a second to say women are definitely high on this list. Why are women more prevalent to experiencing anxiety, fear, and depression? And the more I read, I realized that if they are single and working, quite a bit of the pressure during COVID is I have to be the breadwinner. I have to take care of my family. I have
Absolutely.
to take care of all the bills. And now I have to worry about my health because if something happens to me, who's going to take care of my children? So those make tangible sense to me. It's logical, right? So, right. The more I read, I said, yeah, I would get that, especially since according to our stats that there are more single family homes led by women.
For sure.
So I would understand why those numbers are as such. So I don't know if you had any other thoughts just about women, and we have 4 other areas, but is there anything in particular, why women are more prone to experiencing anxiety, fear, and depression, and not because we're weak, because I've heard people say that. I'm like, Lord, okay, no. Listen, no. I was like, that is not the case, but we definitely internalize more. I believe that is true. I do believe that part is true. But I thought that was interesting because I know a lot of single people, a lot of single women, and I've been thinking and just praying about them that, they have the strength and have the tenacity to push through. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, we're feelers, we're nurturers, right? Yeah. And we want to take care of everybody. we are concerned with everybody, right? Especially our own little tribe. And when we are the only ones working and we are the breadwinner and we have to, we know that going into work every day, we know that like, I've got to do a good job. I've got to keep this job. So nothing can happen to me. And I've got, little ones to take care of. We feel all of that and we take all of that on, and definitely we internalize that. And so a lot of that starts to, affect us if we don't have a healthy way, a healthy coping skill to be able to, or an outlet to be able to handle a lot of that anxiety and those feelings that come on us. And so it would make definite sense to me that women would be, the majority that's taken that on, because that's the nature of who we are. Look, not that men don't feel, not that they don't have emotions. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is that in that way, the way that we are created, it's different for us, right? We feel it deeper. We feel it a lot more fully. And then we feel just that personal connection to that. So that totally makes sense to me.
Don't you think men mask theirs? Because I think men feel just as much anxiety, especially during this time, but they mask theirs. And it's amazing that you brought up the drinking for the couple. That was something else that I read, that alcohol sales have gone up. I think it was like 200%.
Yes.
It had gone up, alcohol sales. One other thing that I found, gun sales have gone up.
Oh, that's a terrible mix.
Right. Gun sales have gone up a great percentage. So I was just like, oh my God, what are they going to shoot the virus? I don't know.
Like, what is that about?
Well, it's part of just that fear all the way around. But I thought it was very interesting. So when I read that about the women, and it was 54% to 29, I was thinking, I said, I think men have anxiety too. I just think they are been trained, especially if they, younger, they were trained, you don't cry, you don't complain, you don't talk, you don't express your feelings. So it's not that they aren't experiencing anxiety and fear as well. I just think they deal with it differently than we do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the second thing on this list is pre-existing health conditions. And I think that kind of speaks to itself, because the first group of people they said were high risk were those with pre-existing health conditions, especially if they were chronic illnesses, cancer, diabetes, things of that nature. So that makes sense to me. The second, the third is those with pre-existing mental health conditions. And I think you mentioned that. I said we were going to get to that. Those who already have pre-existing conditions, that all COVID did was create another layer, for those to even be even more pronounced, or introduce new diagnoses. I mean, you just don't know. So when I was reading, then I was listening to what you were saying, how we feel and we consider ourselves pretty baseline, but those who have generalized anxiety already, and this on top of that, it's hard to even fathom how they can function. Because somebody who's already on the edge, and I have a couple people around me who are just kind of anxious, and I'm not anxious like that. So I'm like, okay, calm down. It's okay. It's okay. But in their mind, just how they process things. So I think it is very, it makes sense to me. So number 4, we are both going to talk about on the list are minorities. So haven't we been hearing this all over the news, that COVID-19 has affected minorities more than other populations of people? So in the research, it kind of blew me away with some things. It said Hispanic people were nearly twice as likely to say that they were afraid or terrified of COVID, and it was 29% to 16% Caucasian, Black people were 26% to the same 16%. So people of color were more concerned. And I'm sure we can probably come to some logical explanation of that too, as it pertains to healthcare, a lack of healthcare or the services in our communities and things of such, that would make sense to me. To you also?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've long known that there's definitely a disparity. There's definitely, differences between services that are available and accessible in other communities versus in Black and Brown communities. The research has long shown that. And my goodness, I don't know if we need to, get a multi-million-dollar grant to go research it. You go drive around the corner and go figure that out. There's a huge disparity, and because you don't have those resources, and we know that in Black and Brown communities that the population there is a lot more able to maybe not be able to navigate the healthcare system as well as those in other communities, right? And so I think that has long been the case. And so with some of the pre-existing conditions, the physical conditions, and the lack of of good healthcare available in Black and Brown communities, I think it just makes sense. Sense.
Yeah, and even if they did go to hospitals, the treatment, especially with the recent, that other pandemic we've been dealing with the whole racial injustice, even if people did seek out treatment, maybe people of color feel that they won't be treated fairly, or they won't receive the best treatment, so they just don't go at all. Or they've gone and just haven't received the proper treatment.
Absolutely.
So all of those reasons could be why they are fearful, or number 4 on this list of being at risk for having anxiety, fear, and depression. The last group on this list, and actually showed up in the news this week, are people who are under the age of 34. Now, so that's the latest group of people who are concerned about getting COVID. It's about 22% compared to the 28 as above. And I really was shocked at this. I thought 55 and older would be higher, but actually 18 to 34 now. I was reading as a result of the protest and opening up the states and all of that they're blaming that, saying that's why we're in a resurgence right now of COVID cases, is because of all the groups, and most of those were young people. That's what they're saying. I don't know. That's according to the data. I don't know about that, but they're saying that's the new group now, and that's who's showing up in hospitals, 18 to 34-year-olds, that they're concerned about getting COVID. So out of those 5 risk factors, of course, there are other people, but I only wanted to deal with 5, so we wouldn't go too long because I want us to get into some more detail stuff on this call. So as we have transitioned from first fear, how it's introduced, and then it transitions to anxiety if it is not addressed. And so we're going to talk about stress a little bit, jump into depression, and get into some detail there. So I want to talk about that buzzword stress, because a lot of people kind of downplay stress, and just say, well, I got a lot on my mind, I'm just stressed. That's that word that really means I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just stressed. I don't know what's wrong with me. So it is something I just really wanted to address and deal with some details of it, so that you can really start to look and say, is this something more, I need to be concerned with? Is this just generalized stress, or are there some underlying things that are going on within me, and the stress is just that top layer? So there are 3 things that people who say that they're stressed about COVID, they're concerned. One is their own health and the health of those who are around them, so their family. Number 2, their financial status. What's going to happen with my job, my money, my stock? Oh my God, let me tell you something. When this first started, I didn't even want to look at my portfolio. I didn't. I was like, oh my God, it's taking a crazy dive. I just don't want to see it.
Let's just put it to the side for a minute.
Like, oh God, yeah. So it started to turn around and kind of head back. And now we seem to be going back into this. But those are things that people are, concerned about. And number 3 is the loss of their support system. So whether that can be something tangible, where am I going to receive, or my family? Because my support system can be my mom, my dad, whoever, and especially if it is in death. So as we start thinking about the stress, one way we want to identify when this stress is headed toward anxiety and heading toward depression are these points we want to talk about here. And one that I've heard plenty of people talk about are changes in their eating pattern.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Changing in the eating pattern. And whether you overeat or you undereat, you just said, I'm not eating enough because I'm not hungry, or I'm just eating, and I'm saying I'm bored. But that's one way to identify your stress level. So the third thing I want you to address, Stacy, is people that have difficulty concentrating and staying focused. Normally they are balanced and they're focused and I got this, but now I just cannot concentrate. Somebody told me the other day, my mind is everywhere. I'm trying to think about this and it's over here and it's over there and it's over there. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. Look, it's kind of like one of those situations where you feel like it's almost kind of like, and it's so funny you're asking me this. I literally used this example the other day. So it's kind of like if you think about a ball juggler, right? And so like he's pretty good, right? So he can probably juggle like 8 balls, right? And that's nothing, right? And so then we'll throw in 2 more. Okay, well, I can still do it, and then we're gonna throw in 3 more. Okay, so now we're up a little bit, okay, and then so we're gonna, and so maybe those things thrown in are, I'm worried about the health of somebody that I love. I'm worried about I may lose my job. I'm worried about, the loss of my support system, and so you throw all of that in, and then he drops everything. And so he can no longer kind of concentrate on all of these different things because it's just too much. People who are normally very put together, they meet their deadlines at work. Here's another thing you'll notice: there may be a drop in work performance. So you're at work and you're normally on top of stuff. You're normally they never have to come to you and say, did you do this? Did you do that? You are on top before your Google Calendar can remind you to do it. You've already got it done. But now, because of everything that's going on, you find yourself kind of even second guessing. Did I do that? I'm not sure I did that. And is this right? Things that you're normally even confident in, you're not so confident now. Wow. Things that you know how to do before, now you're like, I don't know. And so you feel like you're being pulled in all these different directions. You feel like I got to do this over here, I got to do this over here, but I didn't quite do this. I didn't finish this one, and I didn't finish that one. And so just not being able to focus, just feeling like you're overwhelmed with things that would normally feel like they're overwhelming to you. These are all signs and symptoms of being just stressed and feeling like your focus is just like a moving target. Your focus is a moving target, and that it's not.
I like that.
All over the place. Yeah. Your focus is a moving target. And so, and for somebody who normally does not operate like that, it is very unsettling. It is very disconcerting. It is very oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And then other people start to notice it too. And then that can even trigger anxiety. Are other people going to notice that I'm not on top of my game? What does this mean for me? How other people see me?
Yeah, you feel like a failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, as we talked about some of the symptoms for stress, hopefully you guys are picking this up and listening. That this is some good points, and we're not just, brushing over stuff, but we really want you to take the time to identify yourself. Where are you? Where am I? And am I really okay? Because we can take care of other people. I'm really good at taking care of other people. I'm not so good at taking care of me. So I'm trying to get better and do those self checks, especially during this time, because this is a lot on my mind too. I'm one of those people, Stacy, who I'm not a procrastinator. I'm very structured. I'm very organized. And I have to really bring my thoughts in, because I feel like they're kind of all over the place, because I seem like I never finish, like, did I finish that? Because you don't get rest, you're tired, you're exhausted, and then your mind is constantly turning, constantly moving.
Yes.
And it's just like, I'm in this constant state of stimulation without a break. Yeah. So I get this, and I like to call myself pretty balanced, you know, but hey, right. Yeah. So what happens is, when you don't deal well with stress, stress can easily turn into depression. And I want to kind of turn there, because that's another buzzword that people use often. They talk about, I'm depressed. And they just kind of alluded to being, I'm tired, or I just want to lay down. But depression is so much deeper than that. As we talked about stress is really based on those external factors, things outside this kind of pressing you a little bit. But when it continues, it can start to affect you internally. Absolutely. And it can easily shift to depression. And we're talking about, severe depression. Right. So when I did the research and the numbers, I again, women came out on top. Women, we're winning tonight. It said, listen,
not in a good way.
Women's level of depressed mood increased 83%. 83% versus 36% for men. Wow. Yeah, and again, we could go back and think about some of the things we talked about. But if nothing else tonight, ladies, we're dealing with quite a bit. Not that we're ignoring the men, but we need to really take account of what we're saying and evaluate ourselves and make sure we're okay, because these numbers are crazy for the way we're processing this and not knowing when this thing is going to end. So let's talk about a little bit of the depressive mood or depression. And there are a couple points I want to pull out. Most people know that depression is a sad mood and feelings, and I don't feel that great. But I want to talk about 3 specific areas tonight. I want to talk about isolation, number 1. I want to talk about lethargic, or lethargy, and I want to talk about apathy. Those are the 3 areas I want to address as it pertains to depression. And starting with isolation, I know when people hear isolation, they think, I just want, that just means I'm by myself. But one of the things I noticed, and I saw somebody put on the live just now, you look down and it caught my eye, and they said that they were really alone. They missed the fellowship of their church. And so they're feeling isolated. They feel like, I just, I'm out here by myself. And for some, it causes them to be depressed. It's not just, I'm lonely, but it transitions beyond just being lonely, and it transitions into something else. And you said, I feel ousted. I feel alone. I feel like I don't have any support. What do you think about isolation?
It's so interesting that you said that, because I actually wrote that down. But it's one of those things where it's lonely, but it's something deeper, right? And it's almost like, you really either don't want or feel like you can't be around other people. And so sometimes, when we've kind of got into a place, we kind of create a pattern. And so we've been in this pattern of being alone and being separated. But now, because it's gone on so long, it could easily slip into isolation. And so I think being able to, you know, kind of recognize, do I even still have the desire to want to be around people? Do I even still miss people? And so when you get to a place where you don't want to be around people and you don't really miss being around people, then we're moving into something that is, you know, is potentially concerning.
Yeah. So it's a difference between distancing and avoidance.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Because
sure.
I think what they're calling, I'm just being to myself, it can really just be avoidance, because that's a part of the way you're processing this and said, you know what, this is where I am. Whether you feel somebody put you in that place of isolation or you put yourself in that place. Okay. So let's go to number 2. And I want to talk about being lethargic, because I hear people who are depressed talk about, I'm tired, I'm tired. But I want to go to people who feel unmotivated to the degree that I don't have a schedule anymore. I don't have a schedule. I don't have a reason to get up and go. I don't have a reason to be here. You know, I don't understand my purpose, especially if my purpose was tied to one particular thing, one particular area, like a job or, or it's caring for a person and they're not here anymore. Things like that. Loss of social stimulation. People have to be stimulated socially. Some people can't handle not being in a crowd or being with people or talking. It really is severe for them. I mean, it really is drastic. I know I am an introvert. People find that hard to believe because I'm up front all the time. I'm up front in ministry or preaching or training or something, but naturally so, I'm an introvert. And so for me, when I'm not on the stage and doing all of that, I am home to myself with my little blankie, and that's good for me. But some people that's not good for them. You got to understand where they are. And so that would be really difficult for them. But if they lost that routine, just not having a routine, I'm so accustomed to living by a calendar, okay? Yes. And I travel a lot. So everything got shut down, everything. Wow. So it was like, I can imagine somebody, if that's what you do and it's gone and you need that structure. And so it really is easy to push you in a depressive state. And
for sure.
I see how people can really go there and stay there.
For sure.
It's just, I just think it was something worth discussing, that all depression is not you eating buns, sitting on the couch, eating chips and
absolutely not
ice cream. That's not depression. And that's the very surface part of depression anyway. But I'm talking severe, as you said, that I can't move. I can't go. I can't be around people. I feel so small right now. There are people that have lost their jobs that feel so small. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't even know how I'm gonna come out of this. I don't know what's next. And really puts them in this severe state of depression. So I wanted us to talk about that and an inability to handle the day-to-day task. Like the normal things I can't even get up and do, and they should be done. Things that should be done, but when you aren't motivated, and that leads us to the apathy. And apathy is just unmotivated. I just don't have the get up and go. Are y'all listening to me? You just don't. You don't have to get up. You just don't have anything. You're just like, I know I should be doing stuff. And I remember we challenged our leaders, and we were like, "What are you doing in this time that you are off?" Because a lot of people weren't having to go to work, or they worked at home, or they didn't, but they were just there. And people say, well, I did this at the time. And so many people say, I wake up every day, I eat all day. People were showing their food all on social media. They're cooking 5-course meals, all of that stuff, just trying to stay busy, just trying to make sure I'm in the moment. Because if I don't, I just feel like I'm just not here. It doesn't matter if I'm here.
Right. Exactly.
What do you think? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Are you living or are you existing? right? So, again, if your purpose was tied to that particular thing and that's gone now, then you could almost feel like, well, I don't even have a purpose. Like, what is the whole point of me even being here? And so understanding and like digging a little bit deeper into yourself to understand that you have many different facets of yourself. You're more than just this job. You're more than just this one thing. You're more than just, this particular area. There's just like a rainbow, many colors. This is who you are. You're not just this one thing. And going on, I think of taking the time to do some self-discovery, taking some time to like figure out like who am I? Like, what else do I like to do? There's more to me than just working this 9-to-5 job. I have more to offer. I have more to give than just what my job description is. And I have more to bring to this earth than just that. That's not why I've been created. And so I think, when you get to that place where you can like you're sleeping, you pop your eyes open, and instead of like dreading and like, oh God, it's another day, change one of the things I recently heard, I was listening to like a podcast, and one of the things I heard them say is change your attitude, change your have to get to, right? I have to get up. I have to, go and put on clothes, and I have to go outside. Change that to get to. I get to wake up when somebody else didn't. I get to have, clothes on my back where somebody else didn't. I get to get started on my day where somebody else didn't. And it's a lot of this is your attitude. A lot of this is just your own internal thoughts. And it is hard. Like, look, I get it. We're not skipping through the lilies here. I get it. When you have no energy and you feel like that is the last, like moving a foot out of bed is the absolute last thing you want to do, you have to push through anyway. You have to push through anyway, because what you have to offer and to give is so important. And the world needs it. Your community needs it. Your family needs it. And so I would even say, like, when you're getting kind of, down into that low place, and look, I know we're social distancing and all of that, but you still have to find a way to reach out. I would even say, if there are people here in the audience on the live and you haven't heard from friends, you haven't heard from family, reach out. Hey, are you okay? You haven't heard from you. You doing all right? Even getting out, because, we can social distance and we can be in we can go to parks or different things. Use this time, not as a time of, just dread and just, horrible things, but use this time to find new things that you would be interested in, things that you would have never even considered before, finding new things that you can do, whether that's going for a walk or doing an exercise class, which exercise is excellent. It's really good for pumping up those endorphins. But going for a walk, journaling, I cannot tell you how strongly I push journaling. Journaling is so important. Because it does a couple different things. Is it gets you, I feel like there's something that happens when you put pen to paper and you get out what's in here onto paper. And once it's there, you can look back and see how far you've come. I love it. So I think journaling is just very important. And so, yes, this is, it can be a very difficult time, but I think, if we're all honest and we have a little push through and we check in on each other, we can get through this.
I'm glad you brought up, if you haven't heard from your friends or your family, to reach out. There is something that I saw. Yes, we're social distancing, but there's something called warm distancing. And what they suggest you do is to use social media, use FaceTime, use Zoom, so that people can hear your voice and put a face,
Yes.
see your face. You're still safe, but it gives them that touch that they need, especially
Yes.
for those who may be away or isolated or separated. And one of the things I found this was most successful with people who have chronic illnesses that can't be around anybody, they are
Yep.
the ones that really feel isolated during this time because they
Absolutely.
can't be around anybody. So to
Absolutely.
do that warm distancing is
Hmm.
something that will lift their spirits. And I know you
Yes.
may think it doesn't matter, but it does.
It
So
does.
that's
It
why I think people
does.
spend so much time. The numbers on the percentages of Facebook and other social media outlets have gone up because it is a
Yes.
form of warm distancing. So
Yes.
as we're
Yes.
coming to an end, we're a little bit over our time.
Oh
I want to discuss
goodness.
this last thing. I know it goes so fast. As we transition from, we were talking about depression, I do want to talk about suicide.
Mm.
So I want to end, and we're not going to end with suicide, but I do want to talk about it because I think if depression, it continues, it can become
Mhm.
so severe until people get to the point of considering or contemplating suicide. Now we
Yeah.
use the term death by suicide. So
Hmm.
I wanted to share with you when COVID first started, and we were talking about the healthcare workers and people who
Yeah.
were helping essential workers and how they were overwhelmed and they were
Yes.
tired and
Yes.
overworked. I did see that there were two people in New York who
Mm.
died by suicide. One of them was an emergency room technician, and the
Mm.
second one was a physician. Her name was Lorna Breen,
Mm.
and she did she was diagnosed with COVID, took a week off, 2 weeks off,
Mm.
came back to work, and I guess it was still just as
Wow.
demanding, and decided to take her own life.
My goodness. My
So that
goodness.
was very devastating because for one, she's a ER doctor. You know, she's been on the front line helping people. She
Hmm.
knows the effects, and she was so overwhelmed until she
Wow.
decided to take her own life. And I wanted to
Wow.
bring that out because I know sometimes people think that you have to be crazy to take your life. And so I guess we're all crazy then. But stress and anxiety and fear can push you to the degree that you will get to this point to say, I just don't want to be here anymore, or I
Absolutely.
don't understand why I'm here. And
Absolutely.
people don't like to talk about it,
Hmm.
until after it's done, and they want to cry and they want to put posts on
Yeah.
Facebook and how
Yeah.
sad they are. But people have been giving you signs the whole time, and you just, I
Hmm.
don't know if you didn't know the signs or we didn't take it serious. I don't know what it is,
Right.
but I know that it is preventative. So
Right.
the other two things I wanted to talk about, not just the ER doctors, but there was someone else, an Italian nurse, took her life because she was afraid of um, infecting other people. She had
Mm.
COVID. She was a nurse,
My
afraid
goodness.
of, yeah, afraid of affecting other people. So she took her life. And lastly, teenage girls, 15 and 17, decided to take their lives in Oakdale, California,
Mm.
because of the overwhelming effects of social distancing and isolation and
Wow.
fear and
Yeah.
anxiety, which is why we wanted to do this, because I think it is serious that
Hmm.
you can be the most sane person and have a breaking point. I need somebody
Hmm.
to write that down.
Yeah.
Everybody has a breaking point.
Yeah.
So we have to know where that line is with us, which is why we have to evaluate ourselves and pay attention to those
Yeah.
that we are connected to, right? You got to
Absolutely.
pay attention to those in your circle. So
Please.
with
Yeah.
these feelings of isolation and people feeling distance, or they're
Hmm.
avoiding, or whatever
Hmm.
it is, it drives you to this point. We
Yeah.
definitely wanted to talk about it today. So not scaring anybody or
No.
anything of that nature, but I
No.
did call this session the super struggle,
Yeah.
because I think anxiety is a super struggle,
Hmm.
especially right now because we don't have a way out. See, if I
Right.
have anxiety because my job, my boss is aggravating me, I can quit,
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I can manage that.
Yeah.
I can manage if someone in my life is aggravating me,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be with them or friends with them anymore. I have control over that too.
Hmm.
But we do not have control over COVID-19.
Right.
We don't have any answers.
Right.
So it is a constant state of anxiety and stress that
Right.
can lead to depression, and it can lead to suicide. It
Absolutely.
almost feels like it is a malevolent force
Hmm.
against us.
Right.
That's what COVID-19 seems like, a personal attack
Right.
almost
Right. Yeah, you're exactly
against us.
right. Um, you know, one of the things I can tell you in my practice is we are highly trained to look for signs or symptoms of any kind of suicidality, right? So we're listening to certain key terms. We're looking at body language. We're listening to tone and inflection and all of those things. And the one thing that people tend to forget is and they kind of shy away from it, but they tend to say, we ask them directly, are you having thoughts of suicide? Because people tend to say, well, if I talk about it, then that'll make them do it. Or I'm afraid to ask because, that'll put the thought in their mind. No, you have to be direct. You have to say, I am concerned. Are you thinking about taking your life? And listen, there's a couple different types of suicide, right? There of thoughts, or suicidal thoughts, I should say. Suicidal ideation is kind of what we call it. But two thoughts. One is active, like I'm actively thinking about killing myself, right? So I'm actively thinking about ways in which I could do this. There's also passive thoughts of suicidality. Um, my goodness, I just had this literally like a couple of days ago with another client, and they say, well, if I just wrecked my car and I died, what difference would it make? That's a
Oh,
red flag.
yeah.
If I just, we have a lot of bridges here where I live. What if I don't know, if I just drove off a bridge, what difference would it make? Very passive, very, and I have to say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We're trained to kind of investigate those thoughts, but you have to be aware of the thoughts that are going through your mind. What's going on, and is this normal? So one of the things that we teach people is I ask them directly, I am concerned about what you said. Are you having thoughts of suicide? And I just ask them straight up. And look, I can't be afraid of what the answer is going to be, because my job is to, among many things, is to help them and keep them safe. And so what we look for is we start to help them we start to do like a plan. Okay, so tell me, what do you do when you're getting in that low place? What do you do when you're getting stressed? What do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like the world is kind of coming down on you? And so we kind of go through that. They may say, I go for a walk, or I call a friend. And I say, if they say I go for a walk, and I say, okay, I said, but what if the thoughts continue? They say, I call a friend. I said, okay. And what if the friend doesn't answer? Well, then I call my aunt. Okay, let's say your aunt doesn't answer. Then what do you do? Well, I listen to music. Okay, then what if that doesn't help? And so what I'm doing is we're looking for what we call protective factors. And so I will get them to a place where, they'll say, well, I don't know. And right there, I'm going to say, that is the place I don't want you to get to. Because when you start to get to the place where you feel like you're out of options, other things start to become appealing. And we don't want you to ever get there. And so I want to find a way, and we'll go through and kind of make a plan. And then also, obviously give them the number to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is a 24/7 hotline. I think even right now, they're working to try to get it to be a 3-digit number, because right now it's an 800 number. It's Googleable, but they're trying to make it a 3-digit nationwide number, so people can just dial it like 911. It'll be something very similar to that. So,
That would be great.
yes, they're working on it. I believe if it's not gonna be out this year, it's gonna be out very early next year. They're working very hard on it. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. We're at the end. I have 2 questions for you. One came in from our audience, I'm going to ask you, and one is the last question that I want you to answer, that I think everybody on here, we are 20 minutes over. We're supposed to do this in an hour. I knew we had way too much information, right? So I want to ask you this question. I'll ask you the question the staff sent me first. It said, I have two people in my life with PTSD. They do not listen to help. What do I do besides cut them off?
Okay, let's not cut them off. Let's not do that. PTSD is a very different type of anxiety. You'll see this a lot with anybody in law enforcement, military, first responders, even can have PTSD. Don't ever, cut communication. I would say, engage them in a soft manner. You may want to say, hey, Bob, I'm really concerned about you. And I love you and I'm concerned. And I really would like it if you would, can you just talk to me? Tell me a little bit about what you're feeling. Tell me a little bit about how I can help you. What can I do to support you? I don't want you to feel by yourself. I don't want you to feel alone. I am here to help you and help you find the resources, because it's not going to be, that person can't do it, right? But we can help you find the resources. And my goodness, I mean, we're not in the age of phone books anymore. We can Google pretty much anything. So I would encourage you to just be a place like, hey, come on, you know what? Let's search this together. Let's search this together and find some resources to help that person. Yeah, that's tough.
I'm smiling, I'm laughing because, I'm just thinking, I don't know who sent that question, but your response sounds so such a counselor, a marriage family therapist. Bob, I really want to help you. That's probably not how they asked them. They probably was like, listen, I'm trying to help you. You won't listen. At that point, you're probably angry. You're like, I done tried everything and nothing is working. And, I put some stuff on my social media, some quotes, and I said, it's very draining trying to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. True. Or somebody who is adjusted to being broken. They like that place, or they've adjusted to it. I'm not going to say they like that place, but they've adjusted to being in that place, and you're trying to bring them out. It is very hard, and it's very stressful and exhaustive for you. So, I mean, all the right things, you can say all the right things. And I think the audience will want to know, Stacy, after you've done that, after you try to say, Bob, we love you, we really want to help you, and we honor you. And Bob is like, nah. And you're just like, listen, you can't keep tearing up our house and all of this stuff. Like, where do you draw the line? Which brings us to the last question. So you can kind of throw in this with that. But when is, and the question says, pertaining to anxiety, depression, how do you know what's normal right now and what's not? Okay. So what's normal? Whether it's Bob, where do you draw the line to say, this is normal, this is not normal, or this is what we've done and can do, and this is just, when are your hands tied?
Yeah, okay. So let me speak to Bob first. Bob. So look, you can only do so much, right? The most important thing I hear is, I want to cut them off, but you can separate yourself, right? You can love from a distance, and it's okay, right? Because you have to protect yourself, and that's okay to protect yourself. But always leave that door open, right? If you're offering Bob help and he doesn't want it, you can't make him take it. And don't feel like, oh, I'm a bad person because I couldn't get him. You can't save anybody. That is not your job. Your job is to be a listening ear and have an open door. And when Bob is ready, maybe Bob's not ready. That's the truth. Maybe he's not ready. And so if he's not, then have a listening ear and an open door. And so when he's ready, he knows that he can come to you.
All right.
Now, the next thing about what's normal and what's not normal. So one of the things, really, really quick, because I know we're over, is I like to kind of
cut you off.
I know. I like to just say, like, when we talk about normal, I like to say, well, what's normal for you, right? So do you find yourself and others, they're like, oh, it seems like you're more anxious than you normally are. Are you feeling like a little bit more intense than you normally would feel? Do you, second guess yourself where you normally, again, feel confident? Do you live in a place of, are you living a what if life, right? Do you avoid people because what if they have it? I don't go places because what if I could get it? I don't do things I used to like to do because what if I get it that way, right? Limiting yourself to that what if life. And so those are some of the things I would say just that are outside of where you normally operate. What is your normal? Where's your baseline? And if it's something that deviates from that, start to take notice and check up on that.
Excellent. All right, so we have come to an end. Thank you for those who hung in here with us. We realized we were a little lengthy tonight. We had a lot to cover. So I think it was great conversation. I'm so honored to have this conversation with you. So listen, it should be in the notes where you could reach, and I almost said Dr. Stacy, not yet, but where you can reach Stacy. It's dwellwithyourmate@gmail.com. It's in the comments. She said that just because you all have been a wonderful audience, she has a simple layman worry exploration worksheet for anybody who wants it. It's free, but you need to email her, okay? And it's going to help you. She said it's going to help you break down your thoughts. And I love that she's willing to offer that. So if you want that, please email her. It's in the comment section. Email her and said, I want that exploration sheet so that I can understand myself a little bit better. So I am grateful. Stacy, you have been absolutely wonderful. I love the nuggets. I love the conversation. You are an awesome counselor. We're definitely going to be praying for you in the furtherance of your certification. Marriage and family therapy that's her top thing. That's her focus. Absolutely love building strong marriages and couples. You've been married for how long now, Stacy?
19 years, man.
19 years, been married 19 years. Just had a beautiful baby boy who celebrated 1 year last week. He's 1 year old. And so I just want to let people know that if you need individual counseling, she does that too. So it's not just marriage and family, but that's just marriages. But it's marriage and family and therapy. And so it doesn't matter your background. She's very diverse. So I wanted to just put that in there. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are at the end. We appreciate you. We'll be back Monday with Dr. Anitra Quinn, who's going to be talking to us about the psychology of children and what children are dealing with at this time during COVID-19, that children have feelings as well. They're concerned, they're worried, how to help our kids, teachers, how to better support your kids when they come back in August. They're not going to be the same children that left. So please get on that Monday with Dr. Anitra Quinn. That's what she does. She's a licensed psychologist. So we look forward to having that conversation with her. I appreciate you all. I look forward to seeing you Monday. Have a marvelous day. Stacy, you the GOAT. Love you.
Love you.
Good night.